What it do, Dream Team? It's your boy D Neal back with another reaction video. Here we are with what they didn't tell you about concentration camps. And I know about concentration camps. I don't know like details of like what all went into concentration camps. So I think this video will be informational. But before we dive in, I need you to dive into the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Social media and Patreon, all up top. You want to subscribe to any of it? Put all the links in the descriptions. All you gotta do is hit the link, follow me, talk to me. Human, I talk back. What we got?
During World War II, the horrors that occurred at the concentration camps such as Auschwitz shocked the world and continue to be a tragic historical lesson in man's inhumanity to man. However, Auschwitz was part of a much more complex and widespread system of concentration camps that, if anything, even more thoroughly demonstrated the Nazis' appalling lack of humanity based on their deep disdain for other races, religions, and classes of people. Today, we'll take a thorough look at SS
It's just crazy how a human being, like with a soul, like with a heart, like could do this type of stuff to another human being. Like my brain just, it can't fathom it. Like when I see these shows, when I see movies or shows about concentration camps or about slavery, about all of this evil stuff, it's like I just can't. It doesn't click in my brain because I can't understand how someone could do this to another human being. It literally so baffling to me.
Disdain for other races, religions, and classes of people. Today we'll take a thorough look at SS concentration camps because history must be examined thoroughly to never again be repeated. We know it's a hard video, so pull up your favorite puppy photos if you need a short break, and let's dive into this somber topic. One of the first camps the Nazis built way back in 1933 was Dachau. It became a blueprint for the concentration camp system in general, which grew rapidly after the SS, the Schutzstaffel, under Heinrich Himmler consolidated control over the whole system in 1934. The Reich approved funding for the camps from their official budget in 1935, which secured the future and development of the camps until the end of World War II in 1945. Known as concentration camps, these buildings were not at first explicitly constructed to kill prisoners, but rather to incarcerate them all in a designated area. However, the brutal, degrading realities of these camps meant a shocking amount of prisoners, millions, died while being held there. In fact, many prisoners died even before arriving. Most were transported on trains over a period of days or weeks and packed so tightly that there was rarely room to even sit down. Food and water were scarce, bathrooms non-existent, and the trains arrived at concentration camps with plenty of dead bodies alongside those who had survived. What was the process of entering a concentration camp like, and what was daily life like? Prisoners would be separated into men, then women and children, and given a prison number. Most people are familiar with the infamous numbered tattoos given to Auschwitz inmates, but in most camps this number was sewn into prisoners' clothes, a striped uniform they were forced to wear after all their belongings had been taken. Before being assigned to their barracks and work details, prisoners were undressed in full view of everyone to humiliate them. Their heads were shaved and they were forced to shower in front of all the other prisoners and the SS guards, who would hurl verbal and physical abuse at them. The whole process was designed to strip the prisoners of any sense of identity or human dignity, to depersonalize them completely and break their spirit, as the Nazis already viewed them as less than human. Though daily routines obviously varied from camp to
Bro, this stuff, this is just heartbreaking, bro. Like this, it's just frustrating that I don't even know what to say. Like this type of stuff, dude, it's sick. It's evil. Like to in your heart believe that you are superior and you are doing the right thing by doing this to other human beings. It's sickening. It's sick.
As the Nazis already viewed them as less than human. Though daily routines obviously varied from camp to camp, the general schedule seems to have been as follows. Prisoners would be forced to wake up between 4 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. and had approximately 30 minutes to use the bathroom, get dressed, eat, clean their space, and make their beds. Guards would punish anyone who was too slow to finish this grueling morning routine. Considering the bathrooms at concentration camps would usually be shared by up to 2,000 prisoners, it was pretty much a no-win situation for those incarcerated, and an excuse for guards to abuse their fellow human beings. After the morning tasks were completed, the guards would shuttle the prisoners outside to perform a roll call, often in incredibly harsh weather conditions. We're talking about the northern parts of Central Europe after all. A roll call would also be performed in the evening. Almost always, some prisoners would miss roll call because they died in their sleep or from overwork, dehydration, starvation, or a general failure of sanitation throughout the day. The bodies of these prisoners were simply brought out to count them alongside their still-breathing fellow inmates. The prisoners faced beatings and various tortures by the guards anytime they collapsed, failed to respond, or honestly, anytime the guards felt like it. After the morning call, prisoners set off on foot to work details. Even on this march, the SS officer would find ways to additionally degrade the prisoners, often forcing them to sing songs, insulting themselves or fellow inmates. And once again, anyone who failed to keep up with the march to work was brutally beaten and tortured. If you're beginning to get the idea that SS officers were often monsters who just like having excuses to beat and torture people, you're correct. Perhaps now would be a good time to close your eyes and picture a koala bear or a kitten and lower your...
Yeah, I see why he said that, bro, because I'm usually like a happy, positive, happy-go-lucky guy, but seeing stuff like this, it just angers you. It frustrates you. It's just crazy. It's just upsetting to see this type of stuff, man. I can't fathom that. To want to humiliate someone like that, to not care, like we're gonna work you to death is basically what their mindset. We're gonna work you to death, and if you don't work until you die, we're gonna beat you to death. And oh my.
Perhaps now would be a good time to close your eyes and picture a koala bear or a kitten and lower your blood pressure. The day ended at around 5 or 6 p.m., and after evening roll call, which would sometimes purposefully be dragged out to exhaust them, the prisoners were sent to their barracks so they could enjoy their free time, an incredibly generous way to describe passing out from exhaustion or bartering for additional food to avoid starvation. Finally, at 9 p.m., it was lights out to prepare for another grueling, miserable day. These conditions led to 1 million people dying in concentration camps alone while the Nazis were in power. So, who was being put into these concentration camps? Originally, in 1933, the camps held political prisoners, mostly communists who the Nazis deemed enemies of their ideology. From 1934 onwards, the camps also started to hold asocials. This was not a term for people who preferred to read a good book rather than go out on weekends, but instead a polite term for anyone the Nazi Party deemed undesirable in society. You might not be surprised to learn that this covered a pretty large group of people. Asocials included members of the LGBTQ+ community, prostitutes, homeless people, Roma, and the work-shy. This last term didn't necessarily mean unemployed people, but anyone the Nazis deemed as not conforming to social norms regarding work type and ethic. Shortly after, in 1935, Jehovah's Witnesses and pacifists were also given one-way tickets to concentration camps for refusing to fight in the Nazi army. In 1937, apparently running out of people to arrest for the crime of being themselves, the Nazis decided to add criminals to their list. Not those currently committing felonies. Oh no. Himmler and his goons loved arresting anyone who had criminal convictions in the past to round them up and send them off to the concentration camps. Just one of the many raids he conducted resulted in 2,000 people arrested in a single day. In 1938, Jewish people were rounded up en masse after years of intense suppression and persecution under the Nazi regime. In fact, intense is definitely an understatement. Between 1933 and 38, at least 400 anti-Semitic laws were passed in Germany, whose politicians couldn't seem to get enough of them. One of these laws, the Reich Citizenship Law, declared that only Aryans, aka non-Jewish white people for the most part, would be classed as citizens of the Reich. We could delve into the discredited genetic theories that led to Hitler using the term Aryan, originally referring to prehistoric people of ancient Iran and northern India, to describe some of the palest people on the planet, but the choice can be best summarized by saying that Hitler's ideas about race were not only outright false, but also incredibly stupid. Thankfully, no one clings to such ridiculous racist nonsense today. However, under this citizenship law, the Nazis ended up classifying a whole lot of people as Jewish who had never even considered themselves as such. Even if a German citizen was born and raised Christian and had one Jewish grandparent, even one who had converted in their lifetime to Christianity, they would be viewed as Jewish. This would be like classifying every drunk person on St. Patrick's Day drinking green beer as ethnically Irish. In 1938, two major
There's just no logic behind doing this to so many people. Like you're making up rules just so you can go and arrest more people. Like you're making up crap just so you can arrest more people, put these people in the camps, and where they basically work until they die. Bro, Hitler, he deserved the harshest punishment, bro. Like, he deserved to, like, suffer, bro. Like, he should have suffered. They should have all been put in these concentration camps themselves. And I know you're supposed to forgive and you're supposed to, no. They should have all been put in these concentration camps, bro. That's crap. That is complete crap. Like,
on St. Patrick's Day drinking green beer as ethnically Irish. In 1938, two major events intensified the roundup of Jewish people. Anschluss, the annexation of Austria, and Kristallnacht, a horrifying night in which Jewish businesses were destroyed and the SS, with the assistance of some German citizens, physically attacked and humiliated Jewish men, women, and children in the streets. Just in the first week after Kristallnacht, over 25,000 men were sent to concentration camps such as Buchenwald and Dachau. Sensing that things were going from bad to worse to terrifying, many Jewish people tried to leave Germany. But as few countries increased their refugee quotas, only around 120,000 Jewish people made it out before the outbreak of World War II. In the camps, the SS officers established a system of badges, usually triangles under the prisoner's assigned number on their uniform, to identify the prisoners as belonging to separate groups. We assume this was so the officers in the camp would know exactly what kind of verbal abuse and slurs to throw at each prisoner. Jewish prisoners were given two yellow triangles that formed the Star of David. Roma were identified by brown triangles. Homosexual people had pink triangles. Jehovah's Witnesses had purple triangles, political prisoners had red triangles, and general asocials had black triangles. As the number of prisoners in concentration camps skyrocketed, Hitler was well aware that he also had to prepare for war. Thus, the construction of forced labor camps accelerated swiftly from 1937 onward. Though concentration camp inmates were also made to perform manual labor, forced labor camps were specifically started to help the German war effort. As German men signed up for or were drafted into the army, Germany faced big labor shortages. After Germany kicked off World War II with the invasion of Poland, and especially after the invasion of Russia, the use of forced labor to keep the economy afloat intensified rapidly. However, the invasions of European countries, especially Poland and Russia, also meant that the Germans had whole new populations of people to incarcerate and exploit in these camps. They named the forced labor camp prisoners Ostarbeiter, Eastern workers, and Fremdarbeiter, foreign workers. Even though the Nazis needed forced labor to keep the war effort going, they viewed the prisoners as totally replaceable, and therefore completely neglected their health. Conditions at these camps were squalid as those in concentration camps. Because of the strenuous work and long hours involved, death rates at forced labor camps were tragically high. All in all, up until the end of the war, over 14 million people had been forced to work in these camps. After the start of the war in 1939, two new categories of camps were created: prisoner of war camps and transit camps. While foreign nationals were sent to forced labor camps or concentration camps if they were Jewish, homosexual, Roma, or many other things, foreign soldiers and officers were held in POW camps. Not that they had much better conditions than any other concentration camps, though Geneva Convention rules had been in effect since 1929, and Germany was a signatory. The Nazis cared little about upholding standards for humane treatment of prisoners of war. Most of the inmates were given few supplies for survival, and many were forced to perform manual labor as well. However, the Nazis were especially harsh on the Soviet and Polish inmates. In the messed-up racial ideology of the Nazis, Polish people were viewed as racially inferior, and Soviet citizens were enemies due to their communist beliefs, or just—
He saw everybody as inferior to him, bro. He literally saw everybody as inferior to him. Like, I'm sorry, bro. This video just ticks you off. Like, bro, you can't do that so you can't do that to one person, let alone so many people. Like,
as racially inferior, and Soviet citizens were enemies due to their communist beliefs, or just the simple fact that they lived in a communist state. The Nazis captured 5.7 million Soviet soldiers during the course of the war. By the end of the war, around 3 million of these prisoners would die. The other camps that were built during the war were transit camps. These were established in European countries the Nazis invaded to hold prisoners temporarily before they could be transported to concentration camps. See, when Nazis invaded a country, they would carry their rampant racism and ethnic cleansing with them. This meant that locals of the country who fell outside the Nazi standards were rounded up and subjected to the same policies German minorities had put up with. Depressingly, some transit camps were run by local authorities or equally racist local groups collaborating with the SS, who were imprisoning their own people. The last type of concentration camp built during the war is the most infamous and horrific, the extermination camps. The first was Kulmenau, in which genocidal operations started in December 1941. These camps were built to implement Hitler's final solution, aka the ethnic cleansing of the Jewish people, Roma, and other minorities he detested. The 6 main extermination camps were Auschwitz, Kulmenau, Belzec, Sobibor, Majdanek, and Treblinka. Many of those transported to the camps would be killed almost immediately in gas chambers. Those who weren't killed on arrival were forced to work in the camp, either sorting out prisoners' belongings, performing manual labor, or doing administrative work for the camp. Over 3 million people were murdered in extermination camps. This, of course, doesn't even come close to covering the horrifying scale of genocide and mass murder the Nazis engaged in. Over 6 million Jewish people were killed during the Holocaust, with over 2 million being killed via shooting operations, raids in Jewish ghettos, and gas wagons. Between 250,000 and 500 Roma were also killed, around 1.8 million Polish civilians, and 7 million Soviet civilians as well. The Nazi system of concentration camps was the end result of years of discrimination, oppression, racism, and systemic violence against the groups of people they hated. The deliberate dehumanization of prisoners in order to enable the Nazis' genocide of fellow human beings resulted in one of the most horrific tragedies of the 21st century. However, we must always learn about and understand the worst that mankind has been capable of in history in order to make sure we never head down that path again. Now that you've finished this video, perhaps click on something more lighthearted like this one, or this other video right here.
I don't even know what to say, man. Like, that's just scary, bro. That's scary. That's upsetting. It's infuriating. It's frustrating to see how someone else could do that to another human. Like, it's just unreal. That's all we got for this, guys. If you guys got a favorite video suggestion, subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, get a video a thumbs up. Subscribe. Yeah, that's it for this one, guys. Your boy Neal out.